I just thought I'd do a little follow-up to watching the Jeremy Bamber documentary. Um, Someone asked a question about Sheila. Sheila was. It looked like Sheila was still bleeding when the officers took the photo, and I do have an answer to that. Is that perhaps her heart was still beating until the early hours of the morning, even though she had been fatally shot. I've said before I've seen a couple of police videos where people have been shot in the head, and like they don't even know it and things like that. They still, but they don't always die instantaneously, even though you would think they would. Right, I'm on the Jeremy Bamber Innocence campaign website, jeremybamber.co.uk, and I'm not very happy with it. And I'm just going to go through very briefly all of the points that they point out under the evidence tab. So the first one, so what they're talking about is so-called new evidence. And what they're saying is that there was a podcast out by Heidi Blake in the New Yorker, and she spoke to this officer Nicholas Milbank, who was, I think, manning the 999 calls at the time. And when they actually played the recording of speaking to him, now you've got to bear in mind how long ago this was, and they play this recording, and he says so many times, like, I don't really. He does say, I don't really remember it. And there was a Channel 5 documentary the other night. I've got it up here, but I've not got that. I've not saved that particular point. But they made out that this Milbank guy was certain that he received a call from 999, and he just said from what he can remember, such and such was the case. But of course, like 40 years, but he, like I say, he did stress several times that he'd taken millions of calls, and this was like no, because he actually had. Because nothing went on even in the call that was memorable, all he was doing is listening to nothing, maybe a bit of rustling. So there was nothing about it for him to even remember, because 999 never actually spoke to anyone, or he didn't speak to anyone in the case. So he stresses that he can't really remember. And what they're saying is allegedly a call was received from the household at 6:09 a.m. So the killings. So Jeremy Bamber's first call to the police was 3:30 in the morning, and then they sort of arrived at the house. So whilst they were at the house, this would have been. But, I mean, they give a link to the New Yorker article, and of course it's not saved my point. Hold on. There it is. They even tell you what happened at the time. An operator at the phone company was charged with listening in to the open line. So Jeremy Bamber called the police and said, my father said the daughter's gone berserk with a gun. And then what they were able to do at the police is although they can't, if you actually rang them, it wouldn't ring, but the police had the ability to listen in on the line. And it just said, so they were listening in on the line for ages. And that's when the police said that they took over the monitoring the line at 6:09 a.m. So that's when he took over the monitoring of it. And yeah, he said from what he could hear, there was a slight moving around. And so this journalist was like, so someone was alive. I mean, if you can hear moving around, but don't forget, he heard the dog barking, the dog would have been moving around. So there was no call from 6:09 a.m. So what happened on this podcast is she spoke to Heidi from the New Yorker, spoke to this Nicholas Milbank bloke, and she showed him a statement that he made in something like 2003. So again, it's 20 years ago, and he said, you know, he doesn't even remember making this. He doesn't even remember making the statement. So this is one of the other points I want to make. Is it was 40 years ago. You're never going to find anything new like 40, 41 years later. You are completely reliant on what was told at the time. I mean, half the people now are including the officers, are dead. And this is what happened with this PC officer, Nicholas Milbank. He actually died last year, I think, of cancer. So they couldn't really chase it up. And what they're complaining about, the Innocence Project, is that when the CCRC wanted to follow this up, whilst Nicholas Milbank was still alive, they got Essex Police to take a statement from him, and it was completely handwritten statement, and he stuck with the original. He stuck with his original assessment and actually denied, even though they've got it on a recording, he denied what he was saying to this journalist. But I presume, like I say, because he couldn't remember at the time. I mean, when he was talking to the journalist. But basically, there was no call from the house, no 999 call from the household at 6:09. And if there was, like, that would have shown up at the time. And the point I'm making about so there was basically a review by the case by Scotland Yard in 2003. I mean, they're not stupid, are they? And obviously, if there was anything to come of it, they would have let us know. But they're saying, oh, you know, Essex Police shouldn't have been in. They're saying the CCRC should have interviewed Nicholas Milbank instead of Essex Police, as if anyone currently now working at Essex Police 41 years later is going to be doing a cover up for something that happened 40 odd years ago. They're not going to give us stuff, are they? Right, next. Not a great website because they got the overview as the next tab. Beneficiaries, yeah, we know the extended family were due to benefit as well. Well, if it didn't go to Jeremy. Lie detector. Oh, Jeremy Bamber takes a lie detector test. Do not care. You can't use them in a court of law, and a psychopath would easily be able to fake it. I bet I could fake a lie detector test. Right. Now this really bothers me on the Jeremy Bamber Innocence website. They're saying, I'll just read it. 2 separate calls, 3:26 a.m. and 3:36 a.m. calls to police. What really happened on 7th of August 1985? Okay, Essex police have always insisted that they received just one call on the morning of the 7th, 1985, relating to the shootings from Jeremy Bamber at 3:26, reporting a potential incident at White House Farm. Right, if they've always said that, that is all we can go by. And then they've written, however, bearing in mind, they asked the officers who wrote these logs as well. However, the evidence shows there were actually two separate calls. Now, this is what really annoys me. The evidence doesn't show that. I'll look at them in a second, and they're saying one call from Neville Bamber, and listen to the language that they're using. One call from Neville Bamber at 3:26, made from White House Farm, reporting that his daughter had gone berserk and had hold of one of his guns. A second call from Jeremy at 3:36, made from his home in Goldhanger, which is 3 miles away, reporting that his father Neville had phoned him to say his sister had gone crazy and had hold of a gun. Police accept that Jeremy Bamber called them from Goldhanger. Yeah, right. So there's right. I'm telling you now, if Neville did call the police and say his daughter had gone berserk with a gun, fine. Jeremy didn't do it. There's no reason to think that he did. This did not happen. Here are the police logs, and again, they've called it here unambiguously Neville's call, Jeremy's call. On here, it does not say anything about Neville. So here is what they're saying is Neville. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's go back to Jeremy's call first. Let's do what they call in it's the same call, but I'll tell you in a sec what it means. Well, I'll tell you now. I mean, I'll just tell you now. ChatGPT could tell you. So it's the one on the left is the primary control room log. Bearing in mind there's no computers. I don't think there's computers back then. So it's sort of done by hand. So you've always, whenever there's a human involved, there's always going to be a lot of error, and especially when you're Chinese whispers passing one message from one human onto another human as well. There's going to be another error, and also like back then, when you're trying to, I don't know about now, but in my work now, when I'm trying to take a message, I can type quicker than I can write things down by hand. I guess that I used shorthand or whatever. But I mean, if a policeman is taking the call, I might be jumping ahead of myself now, but if a policeman's taking a call, his normal job is a policeman. His like at the station, and they all probably, I assume they all do these, like take these call logs from time to time. Like their job might not be trained in like shorthand. So for me now, taking a call, I can just write it directly straight away. But back then, you actually, even though people were quicker at writing by hand, it's not as fast as typing now and everything. So basically, what I'm saying is you've got to, when you're being given information, you've got to remember quite a lot, and you've got to yourself sort of summarise in your head to jot it down. But so it says the one on the left is the primary control room CAD log call receipt, and the one on the right is the secondary one, received and actioned the information. So they've just passed that message on to the secondary dispatcher or whatever. It's normal departmental record keeping. So it's just one. It is just one call. But I'm gonna go through. So here's what they're calling is Jeremy's call, and it says here. The sender, like Mr. Bamber at Goldhanger. So he's given all of this information, and he's written here. So father phoned. So they've obviously asked him all of this information. Now, father phoned, aged 62. Put in quotes. Please come over. Your sister has gone crazy and has the gun. End quote. Phone went dead. Okay. Father, Mr. Bamber. HA. I can't remember what that means. I'll think of it in a minute. White House Farm. Told Santness the address. Darcy. And then he's written here, sister Sheila Bamber, age 27. Now, Sheila is not age 27, she's age 28. And this is just because he's her brother and he doesn't care, perhaps, and just got it wrong. Or, maybe, like I say, the officer, when he's writing it down, it's not a particularly important piece of information. He thought she was around that, just wrote it down, couldn't quite remember. So they've had quite a lengthy discussion, obviously. Has history of mental illness, is that HQ informed, and duty something, CW informed and unit dispatched, okay, etc. That's the result, so that comes later, so that's written out later. So here's what they say is what they're calling, what is Neville's called to the police. So we know that Jeremy phoned the police, and all he said is the dad said daughter's gone berserk with a gun, and then the phone went dead. So what the innocence campaigners are saying is this is a call from they're saying it's a call because it says 326 and not 336. Again, you've got there's a possible there's actually a possible maybe their clock's over there because right now today all of our clocks are completely synchronized, so I don't know how much synchronicity would have been involved on with these station clocks. Okay, they'll be quite accurate, but then it's like when they're taking the time down, is it the time, when are they taking the time down? Is it the time that they've just received that call right then, or is it after they've written the message and then they look and write the time down? The problem is everything's done by hand, but it's around 326. But the Innocence Brigade is saying, this is a separate call. But look what it says here. So they're saying it's from Neville because it says daughter gone berserk, Mr. Bamber, White House Farm, daughter Sheila Bamber, aged 26, again wrong, has got hold of one of my guns. Right. So they're saying this is a call from Neville. The problem is, it says down here, message passed to CD by the son of Mr. Bamber after the phone went dead. Mr. Bamber has a collection of shotguns and 410s. I think they're 410, what's that, rifles or something? I don't know. That would be police language for something to do with maybe ammunition or something. But the point is, well, one, it tells you that what they've written there was a message from Jeremy. And two, let's just say Neville did phone the police. Why are the police hanging up on him? And then so are the police then having a conversation about how old the daughter is to Neville whilst she's got the gun in the hand? Jeremy was saying the dad phoned him. All he could say is daughter's gone berserk with a gun. Boom, line went dead. That's all the information. And then he phones the police and tells them yada yada yada. The daughter had mental illness, lots of weapons. So then how are they thinking that Neville phoned the police and then also gave them exactly the same piece of information, but then there's more about a collection of shotguns and I don't know, rifles or something, and the address. So the father had time to give them the address, did he? And then what? Did the police say, okay, thank you, bye bye? And then did the police hang up on you? You go phone your son now. But then they didn't dispatch anyone until Jeremy called. So did the police then hang up on him and go, probably not urgent? It's the police have said it's the same call. I think I got my message across on that one. Right, next one. Sheila Caffell. So they're saying that basically she was suicidal. Oh, that was the other one I wanted to look up. In the Channel 5 documentary the other night, they were talking about her notes, but they were just describing her being a bit nutty and depressed or whatever, and they're assuming that's suicidal. But at the end of the day, okay, she was a nutter. Maybe she was suicidal. I mean, I accept that. I mean, I accept she's a nutter. 2 shots to... Oh, this one's so ridiculous. So the Innocence campaign are saying that... Oh my God. Right. A younger female with a wound to her throat. Another, Chief Superintendent George Harris, was lying alongside Mrs. Caffell's body, the barrel of which was resting just below an entry wound beneath her chin. Well, that doesn't mean there's only one. It just means that's where the barrel was resting. So I don't know what they're saying. So there was what appeared to be an entry wound. Oh, okay, here we go. Police surgeon Dr. Ian Craig. There was what appeared to be an entry wound in her throat. He later told the Dickinson inquiry, I only saw one gunshot wound at that stage. Well, okay, but then there emerged to be 2. I mean, I don't see what the Innocence Project are saying is, oh, what, maybe the police came in and fired another shot in her face. But why would, again, hold on a second. Initially, they did put it down to murder-suicide, and it was only weeks, or even, it might have even been months later, that they changed it to her being murdered. So I literally don't even know what they're saying. Right, Julie Mugford. So they're talking about how she got paid. Okay, she's a terrible character witness. Now, I want to mention a couple of. I want to mention 2 things about Julie Mugford. Now, in that the documentary we watched, I forgot to mention it, but They said that in the house all the doors and windows were locked, so that to break the door down. And you might think, oh, how did Jeremy do that? How would Jeremy have got out? We'll tell you. I assume with the keys, maybe it was bolted or something, and you couldn't lock it from the outside with a key. I presume. I don't know. Well, Julie Mugford told the police, and how would she know this if she was lying, that when Jeremy told her about the crime, about the hit, that he went out through the kitchen window and done this little trick with a hacksaw blade to make it look like, well, you could literally lock the window from the outside. I think you used a hacksaw blade to get in, but when you pulled it closed, if you banged it, it would sort of lock itself. Now, if Julie Mugford, this is the girlfriend, if she was lying, how on earth would she know this? Bearing in mind, she didn't live at this house. She lived somewhere in London. So how would she know about this trick of getting in and out of the kitchen window and locking it from the outside? And they know this was a real thing, because when they quizzed Jeremy with it, he admitted it, saying, "Oh yeah," because they found the hacksaw blade, and and the way he explained it is like, "Oh, that was just some way I would get into the house because I lost the keys or something." But for me, I mean, if you're not even, if your girlfriend doesn't even live at the house, let me ask you: does your wife or spouse know? Have they ever told you about a back door way to get into their parents' house? Well, that's one thing. The second thing, and this is what I want to criticise large LLMs for, like Grok and AI, is they put Julie Mugford's testimony down as unreliable due to the fact that Julie Mugford said that Jeremy told her that he hired a hitman to kill the parents. She even named the hitman. I think it was a local plumber. I'm gonna say Michael. I can't remember. And £2,000. And they actually went out and found this person, and he had a rock solid alibi. But the point is that the Grok and AI dismiss all of her testimony because that part doesn't ring true. And what the AI doesn't understand initially, it sort of gets it when you argue with it after a while, and I'm going to let you understand, is if Julie Mugford, the girlfriend, was a woman scorned and wanted to stitch up Jeremy just because she hated him, why would she say that a hitman, that Jeremy hired a hitman to do it, and it wasn't just Jeremy doing it himself? Because that's sharing the blame. I don't know what the laws even were back then in 1985. I know now, I think you get equal blame for whoever pays the hitman, but back then you're putting the criminal, or you're at least sharing the responsibility, or putting most of it on this hitman. and not on Jeremy. And the reason, obviously, Jeremy told her that is because she's not going to, want to be with someone who shot 2 kids in the back of the head with like 8 bullets. So he obviously told her, "Oh, I hired someone to do it," and he actually named some. He had to name someone, otherwise, I mean, she's not going to believe him if he just went, would you? Oh, I hired a hitman. I mean, everyone knows a hitman. He actually obviously had to name who it was, which was a plumber friend who I think was ex-military or something, and had actually a history of that sort of thing in Egypt or sort of. Basically, he named someone. So, if Julie was lying, she would have no reason to make up this stuff about the hitman, especially with the fact that the police could and did so easily find this guy, and he obviously had a rock solid alibi. So much for Julie Mugford's terrible testimony. Then we move on to there's something about the. I'll come on to this. Here we go. This is with the silencer and without the silencer, and they're saying, different bullet. Look at the different wounds. Now let's show you.
Firing.
The point is that was completely point blank range. So that is if Sheila did it herself at point blank range. The point is, she didn't do it herself at point blank range. Jeremy came in and just shot her. And when there's any distance involved, these differences in the wound, in the type of wound, with or without a silencer, diminish with the distance involved. I mean, even from an inch from the skin, it just gets exponentially less, more difficult to tell whether or not a silencer was used. And then they're talking about the police collecting various different silencers and labelling them in different ways, yada yada. Now they do mention DNA evidence when they tried to look for DNA evidence on this silencer. They basically couldn't find any of Sheila's DNA on it, but the Court of Appeal said, due to the time gone, it doesn't mean that there wasn't DNA on it, back at the time, because it had been so many years. But like I say, I'm fairly happy, silencer or no silencer. I think, is that everything? That's pretty much everything. Now, I do want to mention a couple of other little things though that I was looking up. Well, firstly, you've also got this. This is why it differs to the Lucy Letby case, because every sort of avenue you go down on the Lucy Letby case, it leads to more exoneration. Every little branch that you go down, you become more and more clear that there were no murders. In the Jeremy Bamber case, every single little branch you go down, again, points towards Jeremy's guilt. So, we had the fact that Jeremy had handily oh, he left. He said he left the gun, the loaded gun, and a whole box of ammunition on the kitchen table. Now, as you saw on that police log, Jeremy's father owned a load of different rifles and guns. I think it was up to 7 of them. And can you guess which of the guns held a mixture of both the largest magazine and the quietest? Of course, it's that weapon that Jeremy supposedly left out. The quietest of all. Now, when I say sometimes I'm doubting whether or not he used the silencer. There are reasons to think that he would have used the silencer. I think stealthiness might have been an important factor because, okay, you break in. Well, for a start, he goes in. Well, I don't know. We don't know what time it was. Probably, we don't really know what time it was. But it was basically it was in the middle of the night. It could have been any time before 3:30, really. Any time after 9:30 p.m. and 3:30 in the morning. But basically, I think he's banking on everyone being in bed asleep. That's the time he chooses. Now, the reason you would want to do it quietly is as soon as you fire one shot. Let's because one of the options was he could go in with a shotgun, and that would actually cause more devastating wounds. The problem is all of the shotguns, they only carry 2 shells and they're very, very loud. So once he fired one shot, the whole household are going to wake up. I don't know how. I'll have to check how far away they were from the neighbours, but the last thing he would want is people running all around the house. Maybe one of them even grabbing hold of a phone and dialing 999. And I'll get to the phones in a minute. So I think stealthiness would have been important. So that was basically the quietest gun. So perhaps he did use a silencer. And a lot of people. One of the questions that the Innocence Brigade ask is, if he left the house, why didn't he just dispose of this silencer? Well, you can't. You have to put. Well, one, he couldn't have left the silencer on the gun because then when he put it up next to Sheila, he would have found out that her arm's too long for the gun because he left it like resting on her chin. So he would have had to have removed the silencer. And people are saying, why didn't he just take it with him and leave the house? Well, the problem is the relatives knew that the gun, like when Neville bought the gun, and it was Neville who bought the gun. When he bought the gun, he bought a silencer and a scope with it. And one of the nephews, the last time they saw the gun, only about a week or 2 earlier, in fact, the gun had a scope on it and a silencer. I haven't figured out yet why the scope was removed. Jeremy says Neville must have taken the scope off. The reason this is a bit strange is because one, you would have to unscrew it to take the scope off, and 2, actually taking the scope off. it loses its position. Their precision, it needs to be in a specific position, and you're adjusting it and everything. I don't know why Jeremy took it off. I don't know, maybe to make it easier to move around. I don't know. But if Jeremy disposed of the silencer, they'd all be asking what happened to this silencer. So he just obviously gave it a quick polish and stuck it back in the box with the accessories. Like I said, I actually don't think he was banking on having to remove the silencer, because the gun was too long for fingers to reach it. That's what the prosecution was saying. Now, there was something else a little bit interesting about the telephones in the house. There were 4 phones in the house, right? Now, the day before the incident, I believe it was the day before, but at least very shortly before, one of these phones was like a digital cordless phone, and in fact, as fate would have it, that was the only phone that has like a memory recall feature that would be able to tell you who you dialed last, whereas all the other phones were old sort of analog phones, the big ones where you got to put I don't know if you're old enough, but anyway, as fate would have it, that phone was broken, and the guy who he bought it off from the repair shop came and collected it from him the day before. I mean, can you imagine, like, I'm just having my telephone repaired that's what you would do in the 80s. Now you just goes in the bin and you get another one from Amazon, whatever. But back then, these were expensive things. Someone came to collect it, was going to repair it. Anyway, so there were four working phones in the house. That one was broken. Someone came to repair it. So that puts it down to 3. And what had happened is some of the phones had been recently moved about, like the phone from upstairs had been moved downstairs or something. It's like, okay, fair enough. They had a little bit of a jig around because one of the phones had been taken away. But the kitchen phone was found pulled out and buried, hidden amongst a load of old magazines. Now, what's strange about that is that phone was actually in perfect working order. So if the household is minus a phone because the repair shop's gone and taken one to repair, why are you then again gonna remove another phone? And this is speculation, but it's what one of the guilters, I think someone who was a Lucy Letby guilter had commented. And when the murders took place, obviously, like Jeremy, everyone is sleeping upstairs. So he comes at night, and I think he was planning on killing everyone in their sleep. But obviously, the father had survived a couple of the shots and had a little bit of a fight with it. Obviously, he weren't planning on having a good old-fashioned brawl and rolling around in the kitchen, with sugar flying everywhere. So the father had been shot upstairs and managed to get downstairs. You could tell that from like bloodstains. I think he had been shot 4 times upstairs, and then he managed to get downstairs, and then there was the fight occurred downstairs, and then he'd finished him with a few more downstairs. Now, it's possible that in Jeremy's mind, whatever his plan was with this with this phone call to the police to say, oh, Sheila's got the gun or whatever. In his mind, he was thinking, oh, my dad's meant to have been using the phone upstairs. But then they're going to ask, why didn't he use the phone downstairs? Because they found him downstairs. Let's, pull that phone out and hide it away or something. Just speculation, but to me, possibly something going on there. But yeah, like I say, everything, there's just no chance of innocence to me. I don't know, let me know what you think.